The next morning dawned gray, clouds hanging low like a warning. Rain slicked the stone pathways outside the villa, turning the lush estate into a mirror of silver and shadow. Siana moved through the halls with purpose, no longer just a guest, in Aldrich's world, but a player in its defense. She joined Peter and Richie in the control room where screens flickered with live feeds and encrypted lines buzzed softly. Whoever it was last night, Peter said, eyes scanning the data feed. They knew where the blind spots used to be. Someone's been studying the property closely. Richie nodded. They're getting bolder and smarter. Siana leaned over Richie's shoulder. Can we isolate the timestamp? Track the direction they came from? Richie cracked a grin. Already working on it. You're picking this up fast. Peter glanced at her, then at Aldrich as he entered the room. She's more than picking it up. She's becoming essential. Aldrich's gaze lingered on Siana, the faintest curve of pride touching his lips. I always knew she would be. Their eyes met across the room, unspoken truths passing between them. Trust, respect, something more fragile but growing by the hour. Then Richie's screen pinged. Got them, he muttered. Thermal trail. They crossed through the east orchard, too exposed for a professional. This was either a warning or a distraction. Peter frowned. What the hell were they trying to divert us from? Aldrich's expression hardened. The vault. Without another word he turned and strode down the hall. Siana followed close behind. They reached the concealed door in the wine cellar, a biometric lock embedded in the stone wall. Aldrich pressed his palm to the reader. A soft click echoed in the quiet, and the wall shifted inward, revealing a cold steel chamber beyond. The vault stood untouched, but just as Aldrich exhaled in relief, Siana stepped forward, her brows knitting. There, she said, pointing to the corner. A single red rose lay on the floor. No wind could have blown it in. No one from their circle would have dared place it there. Aldrich knelt, lifting it slowly. A card was tucked into the stem, written in clean calligraphic strokes. She wears your name now. But how long before she breaks under the weight of it? Siana's heart pounded. The message wasn't just a threat. It was personal, psychological, targeted. Aldrich stared at the card for a long, chilling moment. Then he turned to her, his voice low and firm. We tighten security. We burn the shadows out of every corner. And we find out exactly who left this. Siana swallowed hard. And if they come back? He looked at her, eyes steeled. Then we make sure they never leave again. The rose remained on the steel table in the center of the vault, its petals vivid against the cold gray. No one touched it again. Back upstairs, the atmosphere had shifted. The villa no longer felt like a sanctuary. Every window became a vulnerability, every shadow a potential threat. That night, Aldrich doubled the guard detail. Drones patrolled the skies. Armed men in plain clothes walked the grounds. Inside, the team worked in shifts, eyes glued to monitors, hands ready on alarms. But despite the security, sleep did not come. Siana stood on the balcony outside her room, arms wrapped around herself as the wind curled through the trees. Somewhere, below, a guard moved silently through the dark. Somewhere beyond the walls, someone was watching them, taunting them. She heard the soft click of a door behind her. She didn't need to turn to know it was Aldrich. You should be sleeping, he said quietly, stepping beside her. So should you. I haven't slept well in years. Siana looked at him then, really looked. The man who had seemed untouchable, invincible, now shadowed by worry. She reached for his hand, and this time, he didn't hesitate. They're not just after you, she said. They're after what you've rebuilt, after me. Aldrich's jaw clenched. They think you're a weak point. Maybe I am. He turned sharply to face her. You're not. Don't ever say that again. The words came fast, raw. She saw it then, what he wasn't saying, how terrified he was of losing her. Not because of what she meant to the Empire, but because of what she meant to him. Siana's voice dropped to a whisper. Aldrich, who do you think sent the message? His eyes darkened. Someone from the inside, someone who knows how I operate, and who knows how to hurt me. She stepped closer, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. Then let them come. We won't run. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch uncharacteristically gentle. No, Siana. We fight, but we do it on our terms. And I swear to you, whoever they are, they'll regret ever touching what's mine. The possessiveness in his tone should have unsettled her. Instead, it grounded her, because this wasn't about ownership. It was about protection, about loyalty forged in blood, fear, and choice. They stood in silence as the wind picked up. Somewhere in the trees, a drone buzzed faintly. The world beyond the villa was coiled and waiting. But inside these walls, they weren't just surviving anymore. They were preparing for war. By morning, the rose had vanished. No one admitted to moving it. Richie swore it wasn't him. Peter cursed under his breath, checking all footage again. There was no sign of entry, no alert, no movement, as if the rose had dissolved into the shadows that delivered it. Aldrich didn't speak much that day. He issued orders with crisp efficiency, but his mind was elsewhere, haunted by the handwriting on the card. He'd seen it before. He was sure of it. Downstairs, Siana met Peter in the east corridor. His brow was furrowed as he looked at the blueprints again, tracing an old security overlay. What is it? She asked. There's a dead zone, he muttered. One we missed. A service shaft that branches out from the east wine storage. We thought it was sealed off years ago, but she followed his gaze. A narrow panel behind a shelving unit, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. Together they pulled it back. A tunnel yawned beyond, dusty, silent, and terrifyingly real. Peter ran a flashlight along the passage. No footprints, but someone's used this recently. Maybe last night. They sealed it immediately, posted guards, and notified Aldrich. But by then, something else had gone wrong. Richie couldn't be found. His workstation was still logged in, his last keystrokes searching for thermal signatures. Just minutes before he vanished. Find him, Aldrich said, voice cold as ice. Now. Peter nodded grimly, and the house went into lockdown. Siana stood in the center of the control room, heart pounding. Richie wouldn't have just disappeared. Not unless... A soft chime echoed from the screen. Incoming feed. It wasn't from one of their cameras. It was external, hijacked. Static filled the monitors, then cleared. Richie's face appeared. Blood on his temple, tied to a chair in a dim warehouse. Conscious, breathing, but barely. Behind him, a masked figure stepped forward. And then the voice. Distorted. Female. You lock your doors and build your walls, the voice said, smooth and cold. But you forgot to watch your own men. Siana's breath caught. The figure crouched beside Richie. He's clever. Too clever. But even clever men bleed. Aldrich stepped forward, fists clenched. What do you want? He barked. The woman turned toward the camera. The mask gleamed in the low light. I want your empire to rot from the inside. I want her to realize just how replaceable she is, and I want you to watch it all fall. The screen cut to black. Silence. Then Peter turned, his voice hollow. That mask. I've seen it before. Aldrich looked at him sharply. Where? Peter swallowed. A contract from years ago. Mercenary grade, ex-intelligence. No one knows her name, but they call her Velvet. Siana's voice was barely audible. Why is she coming after us? Aldrich didn't answer right away. His eyes were fixed on the black screen, jaw rigid. Finally he spoke. Because I burned her, and now she's come to collect. The room stayed still, the weight of Aldrich's words pressing down like a storm cloud. Peter was the first to speak. You knew her. Aldrich's stare didn't waver. I trusted her. He moved to the bar in the corner of the control room, poured a shot of something dark, and downed it in a single motion. No one spoke, not even Siana. She was part of a covert cell we built before I went legitimate. Velvet was our mirror, smart, elegant, surgical. We'd send her in when we wanted whispers instead of blood. His mouth twisted into a bitter smile. The problem was she liked blood better. Siana leaned forward, voice steady. What happened? She turned. Aldrich ran a hand through his hair. Sold intel. Killed a handler. I tracked her to a safe house in Lyon and left her with a bullet in her thigh and a building wired to burn. Thought it ended there. But she survived, Peter said grimly, barely. Aldrich's gaze met Siana's. And now she's coming for everything I rebuilt after that fire, including you. A long silence settled. Then Siana stood. Then we don't wait. We hunt her. Peter blinked. You want to go after Velvet? She has Richie, she snapped. And she's not going to stop. She's watching us, playing us like a game. Peter looked at Aldrich. She's right. We're reacting. That's not how we win. Aldrich nodded slowly. We bait her out. But it won't be brute force. She wants emotion, chaos. She wants a crack in the foundation. She wants me, Siana said softly. Aldrich turned to her, eyes dark. Yes, because you're the one part of my world she doesn't understand. And that terrifies her. The air thickened. Peter left to brief the guards. Siana moved to study Richie's workstation, absorbing everything. Entry points, data traces, the last known location of the hacked feed. Aldrich stepped behind her, voice low. You're not bait. I won't let her use you like that. I'm not asking your permission, she said, turning. I'm already part of this. Their eyes locked. The pull between them sharp, electric. But beneath it, fear. Not just of Velvet, but of losing whatever fragile connection they had built in the fire. Finally, Aldrich's hand came to rest on the table. Then we go together. Before she could respond, the screen blinked back to life. Not Velvet this time. Richie, bloody but conscious. Eyes defiant. I don't know how long I've got, he rasped. She's in Prague, industrial sector. Coordinates embedded in the video stream. She's sloppy this time, or arrogant, maybe both. Then the screen went dark again. Peter stormed back into the room seconds later. We got the location. He embedded it in the code. Aldrich's voice dropped to a growl. Gear up. We leave in an hour. Siana moved to follow, but he stopped her gently. Once we cross that line, he said, there's no turning back. She looked at him, voice unwavering. I never intended to. Prague. The city was cloaked in gray, old stone buildings rising like sentinels through the early morning fog. Rain slicked the streets, neon signs flickering in puddles like broken promises. The industrial district was nearly abandoned, except for the warehouse at the end of the avenue, its windows dark, its silence unnerving. Aldrich crouched behind, a stack of rusted containers, dressed in black tactical gear, earpiece crackling with Peter's voice from the surveillance van parked a block away. Southeast perimeter clear, Peter reported. Thermal scans shows 3 heat signatures. One is definitely Richie. Siana crouched beside Aldrich, a compact pistol at her side. Her breath was calm, her expression unreadable. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked for the last time. She didn't look at him. I've never been more sure of anything." Aldrich gave her a single nod. "We move on my signal." Inside, Velvet waited. She watched the monitors with a calm, patient smile, like a spider feeling the tremble of its web. Richie sat tied to a chair nearby, one eye swollen shut, but still watching her with defiance. "He's coming," she said softly. "Of course he is." She stood and pulled the mask down over her face. "Let's give him the reunion he deserves." Outside, Aldrich held up 2 fingers. The team moved. Siana slipped through the side entrance with the ease of someone born for silence. Peter guided her in her earpiece. 2 guards on the ground floor. No movement near you yet. She reached the inner hall. Cleared it. Aldrich breached the north side. A guard lunged, taken down with a single blow. Then they heard it. Over. The comms, a woman's voice. Calm, clear. "Hello, Aldrich?" And "Hello, Siana." Siana froze. Velvet's voice echoed from the overhead speakers. "You didn't think I'd make it that easy, did you?" The lights flickered. Doors slammed shut. "Trap!" Aldrich growled. "We split!" "No!" Siana snapped. "That's what she wants." Aldrich looked at her, saw the fire in her eyes, the resolve. "She wants to separate us," Siana continued, "because she knows she can't beat us together." Aldrich's voice lowered, filled with something heavier than fear. "If she lays a finger on you, then she'll learn what it means to bleed for a mistake." They moved as one. The upper floor was a maze of scaffolding and broken machinery. Then, movement. Siana darted left, gun raised. She reached a rusted stairwell and found Richie, barely conscious but alive. She rushed to him, cutting through his restraints. "I've got you," she whispered. Then she heard the soft click of a gun behind her. Velvet stepped from the shadows, mask gleaming. "I was wondering when the girl would get bold." Siana turned slowly. "You're not the first person to underestimate me." Velvet cocked her head. "And you're not the first person who thought love makes you strong. It doesn't. It makes you soft." "Then shoot me," Siana said calmly. Velvet blinked, but before her finger could tighten on the trigger, a voice rang out behind her. "No!" Aldrich, dark gun raised, face unreadable. Velvet turned to him slowly. "You won't shoot me. You never could." "You're right," he said. He fired once, clean through her thigh. Velvet crumpled with a scream. The gun slid from her hand. He stepped forward, staring down at her. "This time I didn't come to hurt you," he said. "I came to end you." Velvet spat blood. Her voice slurred. "She'll break you, just like I did." Aldrich didn't respond. He turned to Siana. "You okay?" She nodded, breath shaky. "Let's get out of here." Later on the plane back, Richie slept on a cot, bandaged but stable. Peter sat near the cockpit, already writing reports, muttering about intel sweeps. Siana leaned against the cabin wall, eyes distant. Aldrich approached, his face softening. "You saved him," he said. "So did you." A pause. Then, "You stood between her and the shot." A beat. "I would again," she said. Aldrich exhaled, stepped closer. "You're not bait to me. You're not leverage. You're everything I didn't know I still needed." Siana turned to face him. "Then fight for it." He reached for her hand. This time she didn't pull away, and for the first time in years Aldrich Cross let himself hope. 2 days later, back at the villa, Velvet was in custody. Peter had handed her over to an off-the-books contact, deep state, discreet, and dangerous enough to keep her locked away without a ripple in the public world. But the house wasn't celebrating. It was quiet, tense. Too much had come too close. Siana sat in the library, curled in a velvet armchair, staring at a folder Richie had decrypted, files taken from Velvet's drive before her capture. Pages of coded contracts, black site transfers, untraceable payments, buried in the mess, one detail repeated. Project syntax. She turned the page again, a symbol. 3 concentric rings, sharp edges around the center like a sun in eclipse. Aldrich entered carrying 2 mugs of coffee. He set one down beside her. She said something before Peter took her, he murmured. Just 1 sentence. Siana looked up. You're only scratching the surface, darling. The architect hasn't even looked your way yet. She felt it then, that cold drop of dread down her spine. Velvet wasn't acting alone, Siana said. She was hired. Aldrich nodded grimly. And whoever hired her doesn't want me. They want what I buried. Siana flipped to the next document. This symbol, have you seen it before? He stiffened. Yes. She waited. He didn't look at her when he spoke. Years ago, before I left the agency, I was recruited into a group that never officially existed. People called them the architects. Silent puppet masters. Moved through governments like whispers. Started wars. Ended others. Their signature was that symbol. Siana's voice was low. And you worked for them. I did. His voice was steel now. Until I realized their plans weren't about peace or control. They were about erasure, about shaping the future to serve a handful of names that no one ever hears. Why did they let you walk away? He looked at her, haunted. They didn't. I just moved fast enough they couldn't catch me. But if they've sent Velvet, they're watching again. Siana felt the ground shift beneath her. You think they're coming after you now? I think, he said carefully. They've already started. At that moment, Peter's voice came through the comm. Aldrich, Siana, you need to see this. Now. They rushed into the control room. Peter stood beside the central monitor, his face pale. He hit play. News footage. Grainy. Emergency crews. Fire trucks. Chaos. The camera panned across a high-rise in Singapore. Glass shattered, smoke curling from the upper floors. The headline scrolled. Breaking. Explosion at Cross Global Satellite Office. 7 dead. Siana's hand flew to her mouth. That's one of ours. Aldrich's voice was quiet and lethal. No, that was our decoy office. Peter zoomed in. On the shattered wall of the building, someone had spray-painted a crude symbol. 3 rings. Eclipse Center. Project Syntax. Siana whispered it before anyone else could. They're not just watching. They're sending a message. Aldrich's eyes never left the screen. They want war. That night, everyone else had gone quiet. The kind of silence that comes after a blow too large to fully absorb. Siana sat alone in the old strategy room on the west wing of the villa, a place Aldrich hadn't used in years. The maps were still pinned to the corkboard. The dusty globe still creaked on its axis. There was no digital feed here, just chalk, red string, and instinct. She traced a line between Singapore and Prague, then another between Lyon and Istanbul. The same name kept surfacing beneath the chaos. Syntax. She didn't hear Aldrich enter. She only felt his presence, the weight of it like gravity. You should rest, he said quietly. She kept writing. We've been resting too long. He moved. Closer, watching the board. You were trained for this, she said without looking up. You see patterns. You feel them. But you're still playing defense. He didn't answer. Siana finally turns to face him. I'm not her. I'm not Velvet. But you need to stop shielding me like I might break. I'm already cracked. That's how the light got in. He was silent a moment. Then, I never meant to make you feel small. You didn't, she said. You made me want to feel bigger. A long pause passed between them. Then she pointed to a satellite photograph. A shipping port off the coast of Malta. This cargo manifest ran through one of your abandoned holding companies 3 weeks ago. A shell you haven't touched in years. I shut it down in 2020, he murmured. No, you thought you did. She tossed him a fresh file Peter had pulled. It's been repurposed, and it's now owned by someone named D. Kellis. His eyes narrowed. That's not a name, that's a code. DK, Directive Keeper, internal language from the architects. She nodded. They're building something there, a convergence point. No digital signatures, no satellite coverage, all analog, like they're preparing for a blackout. He studied her, pride and concern flickering behind his storm-gray eyes. You found this? I followed the silence, she said. That's where the truth usually hides. A beat. Then she whispered, we need to go to Malta. Aldrich hesitated. It could be a trap. Siana looked him dead in the eye. Then let's walk into it with our eyes open. Later that night, Siana stood outside on the villa balcony, wind tugging at her hair. Aldrich joined her, hands in his pockets, jaw tense with unspoken thoughts. When Velvet had me at gunpoint, she said softly, I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of dying without mattering. You matter to me, he said without hesitation. She turned to him. Then let me fight with you, not beside you, with you. Aldrich looked at her for a long, long time, then he took a hand and nodded. The next morning, 3 passports, 2 encrypted satellite phones, 1 untraceable plane. They lifted off before dawn, bound for Malta. Unaware that someone else was already waiting, watching, smiling, and ready to bring Siana Blake face to face with the architects. Location unknown. Underground. The walls of the chamber were smooth concrete, lined with screens that showed no news feeds, no data charts, only pulses of heat, signatures, coded names, and long strings of numbers ticking upward like time bombs. 3 figures stood in a ring around the table. Their faces were in shadow, voices disguised even to one another. Only one had a name that mattered, the one who spoke first, the shepherd. She's learning faster than we projected. She's improvising, said a second, taller figure, known only as lockstep. Emotional reasoning, instinct. She's not just reacting, she's tracking. The third voice, brittle and amused, clicked her pen against the table. Krell. And the moment she uncovers what she truly is, it's over for Eldritch, for the villa, for the old empire. The shepherd turned towards the central screen. A still image of Siana Blake filled the display. Eyes bright, defiant, unbroken. She doesn't know, he said softly. Not yet. Lockstep stepped forward. Should we tell her? Krell laughed. Why would we? She was designed to find it on her own. On another screen, a medical dossier unspooled. It was marked Red Class Clearance, Gene Sequencing, Neural Maps, birth records, forged and real. At the top, subject, Blake, Siana. Alias Echo. The shepherd leaned closer. The mistake Aldrich made wasn't taking her in. It was assuming she was just another survivor. She was ours, Lockstep said, coldly, until she disappeared, until he stole her. No, the shepherd said, voice almost fond. He protected her, buried her, but the program always reclaims its assets. A final screen slid into view. Coordinates in Malta. There, Malta base. The trap was already armed. The shepherd tapped a single key. Protocol Rise, active. He turned to the others. She's the key to syntax. She's not just inside the system, she is the system, Krell whispered. And she doesn't even know it. Meanwhile, en route to Malta, Siana slept lightly in the seat beside Aldrich, curled under his jacket. The plane hummed steadily. but beneath her breath, she mumbled something, a name. Echo. Aldrich turned sharply. Siana. But she didn't wake. Outside, the clouds gave way to the gleaming coast of Malta. Golden cliffs rising from the blue, beautiful, untouched, and already watching them arrive. Malta. The private jet landed just past sunrise, wheels touching down on a discreet tarmac miles from the commercial airport. The air smelled of salt and sun-warmed limestone. Peter met them at the airstrip with a tactical vehicle and an old Maltese. Contact in tow, a silent, wiry man named Dario, who had scars along his hands and a rifle across his back. Bases buried under a limestone quarry near Marsaxlock, Peter said, showing the map. It was dormant for years. Then 3 months ago, encrypted comms spiked from inside it. They're broadcasting from a cold system. Analog shields, rotating keypads, no digital trace. No cameras, Dario added. They want to stay. Ghosts. Aldrich's gaze darkened. Then we make them visible. That night. Perimeter breach. The wind howled across the quarry cliffs, bringing dust and the faint echo of seabirds. Siana crouched near a rock outcropping, watching the base entrance through infrared goggles. Her heartbeat was steady, but her mind wasn't. She'd had 3 flickers in the last 24 hours. A door she remembered but had never seen. A code, 714, whispered in a dream. A face, a woman's, smiling coldly, saying, "You were born for obedience, Echo, not freedom." The name Echo clung to her like static. She hadn't told Aldrich yet. Inside the quarry wall, 2 guards. Past, timing perfect, just like in the schematic, Siana signaled. Aldrich moved. They slipped inside, through a rusted panel Dario had uncovered, down a narrow stairwell, into the belly of the base. Interior. The base. The air was stale. Red emergency lights bathed the halls in pulses. Silence pressed in like water. They reached a sealed room. Peter's voice crackled in their ears. "You're close. Next room should house the data core." Aldrich placed a hand on the scanner. Nothing. Siana stepped forward. She didn't think. She knew. Her fingers flew over the keypad. Access granted. The door slid open. Peter's voice went dead quiet. "How did you—" Siana's breath caught. In the center of the room was a pod, humming softly, cables coiled like veins. Inside, a glowing neural interface, and on the wall, painted in the same concentric eclipse symbol, Echo 1 Aldrich stepped forward, voice low. "This isn't just a base," Siana finished for him. "It's mine." The screens around them suddenly flickered to life, her face staring back from surveillance tapes she'd never taken, logs written in her handwriting, but in code she'd never learned. Then a voice echoed through the chamber, soft, measured. "Hello, Echo. Welcome home." Siana stumbled back, vision swimming. A memory crashed into her. A sterile room, wires in her skin. The shepherd's voice, warm like poison. "You're not broken. You're programmed." Her knees buckled. Aldrich caught her. "Siana?" She looked at him, eyes wide, scared, not of the base or the voice, but of herself. "What if I'm not who I think I am? What if I was built?" Flashback year, unknown. Location, the White Room. She was small, 6, maybe 7. Dressed in pale gray, barefoot on a metal floor. Her hands trembled not from cold, there was no temperature here, but from the watching. The White Room had no windows, no shadows, no time, only them. A woman with ink-black gloves sat behind the glass. She pressed a button. "Say your name." The child shook her head. The shock collar clicked once, not enough to harm, just to remind. The woman smiled. Say your designation, the child swallowed, voice like paper. Echo 1, again. Echo 1, good girl. Behind her, a man in a white coat took notes, cold, clinical. But behind him, hidden deeper in the observation shadows, a third figure stood, the shepherd, unmoving, watching her like an architect watches a blueprint. She's adapting faster than the others, someone whispered, because she doesn't know she was taken. That's the point. If she believes the lie, she becomes real. The child stared at the glass. She didn't cry. They'd taught her how to forget. Flash, forward, memory fragments, needles, rewriting. Wires, a lullaby not sung by a mother, but piped through a ceiling vent. A code. Echo, echo, eyes of steel. Speak the truth, but never feel. They ran her through simulations, war rooms, logic tests, empathy trials, where failure meant isolation and success meant reprogramming. Her mind fractured, and someone somewhere whispered, when the time comes, she'll activate. Not with a trigger, but with choice. Now! Inside the base. Siana stood frozen, trembling. The memories had surged like a storm, unwanted and raw. Her breathing was ragged. The walls of the room seemed to shrink, screens flickering with words. She now understood instinctively. Lines of command code, neural triggers, identity layers. Aldrich held her shoulders. Siana, she looked at him, eyes glassy. I'm not real, his jaw clenched. Don't say that. You don't understand. I do, he said firmly. I do. They made something, but you became someone. He reached for her hand. You chose kindness, loyalty, fire, me. That wasn't programming. That was you. But what if I turn into her again? Her voice cracked. Echo. Then I'll remind you who Siana is every time. A pause. Then footsteps. In the corridor outside, Peter's voice crackled over comms. We've got company. Multiple hostiles. Coming in hot. Aldrich's eyes went sharp. They knew we'd find this. Siana turned toward the pod. Inside, something pulsed. A neural hard drive, still alive. I can access it, she whispered. But I need time. He drew his weapon. Then I'll buy you every second. Siana sat before the console, hands trembling, heart steel, as the echoes of her past screamed in her skull. She fought to stay herself, and somewhere inside the data, a final truth waited, one that could destroy everything or save them all. The quarry base, breach. Gunfire shattered the silence. Peter took point, shotgun slung and eyes scanning every dark corner. They're not locals, tactics are too clean. Aldrich fired twice, silent, efficient. They're architects, containment team. They don't want to kill her, Peter said grimly. They want to retrieve her. Outside the control room, sparks flew as a breaching charge hit the side door. They're coming in! Aldrich's eyes flicked to the inner chamber. Siana was already under. Inside the interface, the echo mind. It felt like drowning. Siana's body slumped into the neural seat, cords wrapped around her temples like vines. The moment she accessed the pod, the system recognized her. Echo 1. Primary, override authority granted. But it didn't open gently. It pulled. She fell through waves of data, memories, simulations, blueprints of her mind. A lattice of versions, rewrites, overwrites. Every time she had felt something in her real life, it had triggered old files, old instincts. File 03A, compassion response, delayed activation. File 07B, trauma conditioning, unstable. File 11C, lethal directive, dormant. At the center of it all, she saw herself, not as she looked now, but a girl in a glass tank, eyes closed, floating, waiting for a command. Siana screamed, "I'm not her! I'm not your weapon!" The memory image opened its eyes. "But you were, and you still can be. Elsewhere." The shepherd's command room. He watched the feed flicker. Aldrich firing, Peter wounded, the retrieval unit closing in. But inside the base, inside the pod, Echo 1 was waking up. "She's interfacing beyond containment protocols," Lockstep warned. "She's burning through years of encryption like it's instinct." Krell leaned forward, smiling. "Because it is. She's not breaking the code. She is the code." The shepherd said nothing. He stared at her image, hair wild, body shaking, a war raging in her mind. "She's approaching the trigger core," Lockstep warned. "She's going to find the final protocol. She was never supposed to get this far," the shepherd whispered. "No, she was always meant to get this far." Inside Siana's mind, the core. The world around her collapsed into white. The glass tank shattered. The child inside stepped out, merging into her, and a single phrase echoed through her skull. "You are not Echo." "You are the rewrite," Siana gasped, eyes flying open in the real world, just as the door exploded behind her. Aldrich tackled a guard. Peter dragged a second one down with a blade to the throat. "Siana!" Aldrich shouted. "Did you get it?" She stood, calm, changed. "I got everything," she said. Her voice had steel in it now. "I know what they did." Then her eyes locked on the camera in the ceiling, the one the shepherd was watching. Through. She stared straight into it and said cold and clear, "I'm coming for you." 48 hours later. Underground safe house, Lisbon. The room buzzed with maps, laptops, and the low hum of encrypted signals bouncing through satellites like whispers through fog. Peter's shoulder was bandaged. Richie was back, running comms. Dario manned the door. Siana stood at the center, composed, deadly, and for the first time since Aldrich met her, free. 3 architect nodes left, she said, pointing at the board. Each led by a core controller, each one with access. To the syntax framework, Peter nodded. We hit them. We destabilized the entire organization. Killed their ability to control Echo-class assets, including the next-gen ones. Siana's jaw tightened. They built me to lead those assets. I'm not the only one. Richie hesitated. So you're saying there are others like you? She nodded slowly. Still sleeping, still running simulations. But if we take down syntax, we break the chain before they activate. Aldrich stepped forward. Where do we start? Siana tapped a file, an old chateau in Austria, now repurposed as a black site clinic for behavioral neuromod research. It's where they reset me. Once. I remember now. Peter grimaced. You sure you're ready to go back in? She looked up. I'm not going back in. I'm going to burn it down. Austria. 2 nights later. Snow fell in silence as the van pulled up behind the old stone estate. Lit windows glowed through iron bars. Inside, scientists and operatives moved like clockwork. Somewhere deep in the lower levels, patients, or subjects, slept, unaware of the truce. Aldrich, Siana, Peter, and Dario split into teams. Objective 1. Extract data and subject files. Objective 2. Secure or free Echo 2 through Echo 5. Objective 3. Find Controller Capel and end him. Siana slipped through the shadows like she'd been born in them. No hesitation, no fear. A lab tech crossed her path. She pressed him. Against the wall, blade to throat. Where's the vault? He trembled. Sub-level 2. Behind a biometric lock. She was already moving. Inside the vault. The walls were lined with neural beds. 4 were occupied. Children and young adults, their faces peaceful, unaware. On a monitor above them, status, dormant, stim pending. Siana's hand hovered over the interface. Her voice cracked. They never even had a chance. Aldrich stepped beside her. We can get them out safely. Dario has a route. Siana pulled a chip from her jacket, the data core from Malta. She slid it into the terminal. Uploading counter protocol. Function, wake, release, erase. Alarms began to blare. She whispered to the sleepers. This time you get to choose. Elsewhere, in the facility, Peter found Capel first, cornered in his office trying to wipe drives and burn files. You! Capel hissed. You were supposed to be a corpse. Peter raised his gun. Funny, so were you. Bang. Minutes later. Extraction. Explosions tore through the foundation as Richie's timed charges lit the night sky. Dario guided the now awake Echo subjects into the snow-covered woods. They were disoriented, but alive. Siana stood on the roof, watching the fire consume the place that had once rewritten her. Aldrich joined her. You did it. She shook her head. We did. He looked at her and saw not Echo, not the weapon, not the girl lost in shadows, but Siana Blake, burned and reforged, and just beginning. Back in Lisbon, a signal went out to every architect, satellite, bunker, node, from Echo 1 herself. I remembered everything, and I'm coming for the rest of you. Shepard's command, bunker. Night. The room was dim, lit only by the cold glow of holographic schematics and satellite feeds. The shepherd stood motionless, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the flashing red alerts across the main screen. Lockstep approached quietly. They destroyed the Austrian node. The others are waking. Krell smirked from a shadowed corner. Echo 1's broadcast tore through our encryption. The network is exposed. The shepherd's voice was calm but lethal. Then it's time. He tapped a panel. Walls slid open to reveal an armory of experimental weaponry. Drones with neural jammers, cloaked assault units, and something darker. A containment pod labeled Project Requiem. Prepare the countermeasures. We'll deploy the hunters. And activate Requiem, Lockstep frowned. Requiem? You mean the final failsafe? Shepard's eyes glinted. A failsafe only if the echoes survive long enough to trigger it. Krell laughed. Or a reckoning. Elsewhere. Urban nightscape. A signal pinged across every cell phone, every dark net channel, every secure line. It was the shepherd's warning. Echo 1 is a threat. Hunt her and her flock before they erase the past and the future. And beneath the message, a cold promise. There is no freedom for those born in chains. Back with Siana and Aldrich, Peter's fingers flew over a laptop keyboard. They're mobilizing faster than expected. Siana clenched her fists. We've lit a fire. Now we have to make sure it doesn't burn us all. Aldrich pulled her close. We fight. Together. She looked up, fierce and certain. This ends on our terms. Lisbon. Midnight. Rain slicked the cobblestone streets. The old quarter was quiet. Too quiet. Peter scanned the alley. Something's wrong. Richie's voice crackled in over comms. We've got signal jamming. Satellite feed just cut. Aldrich drew his weapon. It's a trap. Then, silence broke. A hiss. A shimmer. Cloaked hunters decloaked in sync. Black armor glinting under streetlights. No insignias. No voices, just movement. Precise, surgical, inhuman. Down! Peter shouted. Gunfire tore through the air. Not bullets, pulses, EM rounds. Designed to stun nerves, not kill. Designed to capture. They weren't here to eliminate. They were here to take Siana alive. Siana's POV, everything slowed. One hunter lunged, faster than she could track. but something else surged up in her. Not fear, not instinct. Programming. Her body moved on its own. Spin, elbow, disarm, knee to helmet. The hunter staggered. Shocked. So was she. "You're activating," a voice whispered inside her. "The buried protocols. You were built for this." No. She pushed it down. Not the programming, not the weapon. She fought as Siana. By her side, Aldrich moved like fire, shooting, blocking, never leaving her. Peter took a hit to the shoulder but dragged two of them down with him. "Keep moving! Regroup at fallback point Alpha!" They ran, through tight alleys, under rain-slick balconies, through ancient markets now glowing under the hum of drone light, and the hunters followed. One by one, the team was forced to split. Peter limped down a side path with Dario covering him. Aldrich and Siana ducked into a wine cellar beneath a broken stone archway. Siana gritted her teeth. "They won't stop, not until I'm back in a cage." Aldrich met her gaze. "Then we make this city their grave." She pulled a shard of hunter tech from her belt, the one she ripped off the first one she dropped. "Then let's turn their toys against them meanwhile, back at Shepard Command." Krell smiled, watching the operation unfold. "They're cornered. She'll be back in our hands by dawn." The Shepard said nothing, eyes locked on one screen. Live feed from a drone hovering above the alley where Siana last vanished. But then the feed died. Static, signal overwritten. A new image blinked onto every monitor. Siana Blake, eyes glowing, faintly, hair soaked in rain, voice calm and dangerous. "You sent your hunters, but here's the truth. I don't run anymore." She held up the device she took. "And now I know how to find you." Static swallowed the screen. The Shepards, jaw tightened. "She's coming." Lisbon, East District, 3 to 17 a.m. Rain still fell, heavy now. Peter leaned against a crumbling wall, clutching his bleeding shoulder. Dario patched him up, muttering curses in Portuguese. "We should have stayed with them," Peter growled. Dario tightened the bandage. "Siana and Aldrich know how to vanish. We had a job. Check the fallback cache. Confirm the data drop survived the jamming. You almost died doing it, so don't start whining now." Peter smirked weakly. "Since when?" "Do you talk so much?" "Since the people I care about started being hunted like dogs." They reached the cache point. Hidden beneath an old church was a sealed vault, biometric locked, Shepard designed, repurposed by Ritchie months ago to hold dirty secrets. Dario keyed in. It hissed open. Inside, drives, backups, a memory slate, with a single word etched in faded ink. Echo 2, Lakes. Peter's hand hovered over the device. "Lux." He tapped it. The recording began. Flickering footage. Clinical. A lab room. A child, maybe 12. Standing calmly, head shaved, eyes bright. Too bright. A doctor spoke. "Subject looks, shows no resistance to alignment. She sinks faster than Echo 1. We may not need Blake at all." A second voice, cold male. "Echo 1 is legacy. Lux is evolution." The girl looked straight into the camera and smiled. "You think I'm asleep, but I've always been awake." Then static. Then a kill feed, time-stamped 3 weeks ago. Facility Eastern Node offline. Casualties 67. Survivor Subject Lux. Status uncontained. Peter went pale. "She's loose." Dario backed away from the screen. "And she's not looking for family. She's looking for revenge, back at Siana's location." Her comm buzzed weakly. Peter breaking through the jamming. "Sia," he breathed. "You're not the only one out. There's another. Lux." Siana's breath caught. "Alive?" Peter's voice was tight. "More than that. She remembers everything, and she's not like you. She wasn't just trained, she was programmed to evolve without limits. A pause, and she hates you. Elsewhere. Abandoned observatory. A girl stood in the dark, maybe 16 now, face lit by a flickering drone she'd torn apart and rebuilt in seconds. Her eyes? White hot, Lux whispered to herself. They chose her, not me. She ran. I stayed. Now, I'll show them what staying became. She turned toward a red dot blinking on a map. Lisbon, and smiled. Lisbon. Morning fog. The rain had stopped, but the city felt drenched in silence. Siana moved through the narrow market streets, hood pulled. Low, eyes sharp. Beside her, Eldridge kept pace, scanning for tails. They weren't being followed, but they were being watched. Peter's warning echoed in her mind. She hates you, not Shepherd, not the architects, her own sister. Echo too. Lux, somewhere. Nearby, rooftop overlook. Lux crouched on the edge of a rusting radio tower, hands wrapped around a stolen sniper scope, not for shooting, just watching. She tracked Siana's every movement, eyes narrowed, calm, calculating. Her voice was barely a whisper. You don't even know what you gave up, sister. Behind her, a neural drone hovered like a shadow. File match, Echo 1, distance, 143 meters. Status, unescorted threat. Lux ignored it. She wasn't here to kill. Not yet. Down below, in an antique shop. Siana froze mid-step, a shiver down her spine, like being touched by a memory that hadn't happened yet. She turned. Nothing, Aldrich noticed. What is it? She scanned the open street, the rooftops, the air itself. I felt her. 10 minutes later, train station. Crowds moved like fog. Faces, noises, none of it registering. Then, a girl walked past Siana, younger, barely more than a teen. Carrying a broken radio, their shoulders brushed. Siana turned. The girl didn't, but for one flickering second, their reflections met in a passing train window. Two faces, same eyes, and looks, smiled. Siana gasped. No. Aldrich reached for her. What did you see? She shook her head, stepping back like she'd touched fire. It was her. She was right there. He drew his weapon, eyes scanning. Where? But Lux was gone. All that remained was the faint, distorted melody of the broken radio echoing off the walls. Ring around the roses, ashes, ashes, back on the rooftop. Lux sat cross-legged now, eyes closed, fingers tapping patterns on her palm. She's slower than they promised, softer than I expected. Good. She opened her eyes, voice like frost. Let her wonder. Let her feel me. Because when I do take her, it won't be from behind. It'll be face to face. Later that night, Siana's safe house. She stared at the mirror, at herself, and at the ghost of another girl in the same face, younger, colder, smarter, sharper. Aldrich came up behind her, silent. She's close, Siana said, and she's not hunting the shepherd. She's hunting me. Underground comms hub. Night. The room was dim, shielded, wired tight. Peter and Richie worked in tandem, rerouting surveillance feeds and decrypting corrupted files. Lux had unknowingly triggered when she slipped past their firewalls earlier. Peter paused. Richie, look at this. A facial recognition burst alive on screen. Fragmented images from multiple feeds stitched together. A face. Old familiar. Aldrich stepped closer. Is that... Peter's voice was flat. No, that can't be right. The system confirmed it with a silent ping. Match found. 98.7% identity. Vincent Kaine. The room froze. Vincent Kaine, the architect of the early Echo prototypes. Dead, buried. Officially. Richie staggered back. He was your mentor, Aldrich. You said he died when the labs burned. Aldrich's jaw clenched. That's what I was told. That's what he told me. He said he was compromised. He made me run. I watched the building collapse. Peter looked up slowly. He didn't die. He became the shepherd. Flashback. Years earlier. Smoke. Screams. A burning lab. A young Aldrich pulling a drive from a wrecked console. Yelling for Vincent. Coughing through blood. Vincent's voice in the static. It's all a lie, Aldrich. If they get the girl, if they control her, they don't need me anymore. Go. And then, an explosion. Except now they knew. He didn't die in the blast. He orchestrated it, back in the present. Siana whispered, he's not just running the program. He created it. Lux, me, all of it. Peter paced. He faked his death to wipe his trail, then used the ecotech to start over without ethical oversight. Richie was still scrolling. Wait, there's more. This isn't just about power. He didn't just clone intelligence or train obedience. His voice faltered. A new stay. File open. Project, sovereign. Objective, create the perfect inheritor. Status, in progress. Subjects, Echo 1, Blake, Echo 2, Lux, Echo 0, redacted. Siana's eyes narrowed. Echo 0! Suddenly, an explosion rocked the building. Emergency lights blared. Alarms screamed. Peter slammed the console shut. They found us. Dario's voice yelled over comms. We're under assault. Multiple hostiles, no uniforms. Aldrich grabbed Siana's hand. We need to run. But she stood firm, trembling, then steady. No, she whispered. I'm done running. Cut to Shepard's command room. Vincent Kaine, the shepherd, watched from his throne of screens, his face older now, scarred, smiling faintly. You were always the brightest, Aldrich, he said quietly to no one, but never the strongest. He tapped a glowing icon on his console. Echo 0 activate. Burning streets, Lisbon outskirts. The comms hub was rubble. Flames lit the sky in sick red pulses. Sirens in the distance. Drones overhead. Siana, Aldrich, Peter, Richie, and Dario pushed through the smoke, bruised, bleeding, alive. Barely. They didn't speak. Every breath counted. Then, a shadow dropped from the rooftop ahead. Light footsteps. Controlled breathing. Lux, unarmed. Calm, but more dangerous than ever. She stood in the center of the street like a blade waiting to be drawn. Siana froze. Aldrich raised his weapon. Move! Lux tilted her head. Why do you follow her? Peter aimed his sidearm. Back off, kid. Lux ignored him, eyes only on Siana. Do you even remember me? Siana hesitated. You were a child. I thought you were gone. Lux smiled faintly. They kept me. You ran. I became what they wanted, and now she raised her hand, revealing the glowing pulse core she ripped from one of the shepherd's drones. Now I've stolen his future. Suddenly, gunfire from behind. A third group entered. Not shepherd's men, not echoes, mercenaries. Black. Ops. Hired hands. A trap within a trap. Richie ducked behind cover. They're trying to clean the board, Dario fired back, shouting, Too many fronts. Aldrich pulled Siana behind a barrier. We split. We die. Siana's eyes flicked to Lux, standing still amid the storm, untouched. Then Lux moved. A blow. She disabled 2 mercs in seconds, using only a shard of metal and their own rifles. Not for them, for her, for Siana. Then she stopped. Face to face now, barely a meter apart. Siana stared. "Why help us?" she asked. Lux's voice was low, bitter. "I don't help you. I want the shepherd. I want to end this." A pause. "But you can die after." Aldrich stepped between them. "Try it." She didn't move. Didn't need to. The message was delivered. "We're not allies. We're in each other's way." Above, in a distant command drone, the shepherd watched it all. Lux killing his men, Siana resisting the call, Aldrich protecting her, Peter unlocking truths. His hand hovered over a control. "Echo 0 status green," he whispered. "Now we see who survives the storm." Final moment. The team escapes. Barely. Thanks to Lux forcing the mercs into retreat. But in the wreckage of the street, as smoke cleared, Lux stood alone, staring at the blood on her hands, not shaking, not weeping, just waiting, because she knew it wasn't over. The shepherd was watching. Siana was becoming. And Echo 0 was coming online. Safe house. Deep in the countryside. Nightfall. The silence was heavy. Not peaceful. Tense, like the earth holding its breath. Siana sat alone at the edge of the porch, the night wind pulling at her jacket. Moonlight touched the scars on her wrist. Faint, faded reminders of before. Aldrich stepped out of the doorway behind her, moving slowly, respectfully. "Mind some company?" She didn't answer, just made space beside her. He sat for a long moment. They watched the stars, distant and indifferent. Then Siana whispered, "I remember the girl with the yellow ribbon." Aldrich turned slightly. "What?" Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "She was in the room next to mine. I never saw her face, just her shadow on the wall and the humming. Same tune every day. It was how I stayed sane. I'd count the notes to know I wasn't alone. A beat, then it was Lux." Aldrich didn't move. "You blocked it out." "I had to," she breathed. "What they did to her, to us. If I remembered, I wouldn't be standing." Flashback, flickering memory. 2 children, separated by glass and soundproof walls. One huddled under a cot, barely breathing. The other strapped to a gurney, awake, while doctors argued in code. A yellow ribbon hung limply from a vent above. A girl's voice, soft and defiant, saying, "Ashes, ashes, we all fall down." Then a scream, electric, surgical. Then silence. Siana curled in tighter, back to present. Tears streaked her cheeks now, but she made no move to wipe them. "I left her there, Aldrich. I ran, and I left her to burn." He turned toward her, voice rough. "No, you survived. You were never meant to. And now—" He reached for her hand slowly. "Now we face it, together." She looked at him. All the pain, all the fury, all the weight she'd carried alone. And for the first time in years, she let herself lean on someone inside the house. Peter was building maps. Richie was rewriting firewalls. Dario loaded weapons. But on the screen, glowing dim in the corner, a new signal pulsed, encrypted, unknown. And then it decrypted itself with a single word. "Hello, Echo 1. Attached, a photo of a facility. Snowbound, northern ranges. Echo 0. Online, Northern wastes." 6 hours before the signal, snow screamed across the landscape like a living thing. Lux didn't flinch. She moved through the storm in silence, body adapted to cold, to pain, to solitude. Her coat was reinforced, armor hidden beneath soft fabric. Her rifle slung casually at her back, more threat than tool. Ahead, the old Sovereign facility, half buried, still humming beneath the ice. No guards, no drones. Too easy. She didn't trust it. Inside, Silence. Then the hum of life. Lux passed through the outer halls, blackened steel and shattered observation glass. She recognized some of it, others, no. Scrawled in blood or oil on one wall, "We are what you built." Echo Zero remembers, she paused. Fingers brushed it. Memories came uninvited. Flash, she was 8. A voice through glass. "Sing louder." Pain, silence. Another child, watching her, crying in the dark. Ashes, ashes. Deeper still. She reached the holding chambers, but they were empty. The cells? Smashed from inside and on the floor. Piles of old files, shredded, torn, then placed back together like an offering. At the center, a chair, blood-stained restraints, a cracked mirror facing it, written on the mirror in charcoal. "I know who I am now." A sound behind her, a click. Lux spun, weapon raised, but no one was there, just the lights, flickering on or one by one, leading her forward into the sub-zero vaults. Sub-level 4, biocontainment wing. The cold hit different here. It burned, frost-lined, the glass. Data terminals blinked in silent protest. Then the movement. Lux raised her weapon again, heart steady. A figure behind frosted glass, pale. Still, sleeping. No bot watching. Echo Zero, genderless, expressionless. A perfect echo of nothing, but in its eyes, something uncanny. Too knowing. A soft voice crackled from overhead speakers. Familiar. The shepherd. "Hello, Lux. Welcome home." She didn't reply. "You wanted freedom. I gave you purpose. But zero was always the future." The lights shut off. Total darkness. Then red emergency glow. Lux turned just in time to see the containment pod melting open. Frozen fog spilled into the hall. "Run," whispered the voice in her head. "This one doesn't bleed." End scene. Lux disappears into the darkness of the compound, hunted. And somewhere in the cold, Echo Zero takes its first breath outside containment, a new kind of weapon, not trained, not bound, born to finish what the shepherd started. Sub-level 4, biocontainment wing. The red emergency lights flickered like warning sirens in the gloom. Lux's breasts formed icy clouds as she crept down the corridor, every muscle taut, every sense sharpened. Echo Zero had broken free, and it was hunting. The air shifted, silent but heavy, as if the darkness itself was alive. Lux moved slower, listening. Ahead, a low mechanical hum vibrated through the floor. She pressed herself against the wall. Then she saw it. A tall, slender figure, limbs too long, movements too fluid. Its face was a blank canvas, smooth, pale skin, without a single feature, except 2 deep, unblinking black eyes that locked on hers. Echo Zero, the chase began. Lux darted through narrow corridors, turning sharply, hearing the heavy, unnatural footsteps behind her. She fired a burst from her rifle, but the bullets passed through Echo Zero like mist, leaving no mark. It moved faster, relentless, unfeeling. Cornered in an observation chamber, Lux slammed the door shut, sealing the heavy metal behind her. She caught her breath, heart pounding. The chamber's window fogged with her breath. Suddenly, Echo Zero appeared on the other side, watching. Without moving, it raised a pale hand, fingers twitching almost thoughtfully. A whisper echoed inside. Her mind, cold, precise, unmistakable. "You cannot run from yourself, Lux." Her eyes widened. Echo Zero wasn't just a weapon. It was a reflection. The ultimate evolution of the Echo Project. The part of her, the part of Siana, that was buried deep, erased, hidden. Suddenly the chamber's lights surged, bathing the room in white. Echo Zero reached forward, not to kill, but to touch. The glass between them cracked. Lux braced herself, and then silence. The glass shattered inward, but Echo Zero stepped back. It spoke, voice modulated, soft, yet commanding. "This is not your battle, sister, but soon it will be." Lux exhaled slowly, stepping back into the shadows. The hunt wasn't over. It had only just begun.